Hello and welcome to another one of my videos. In this one, I will tell you about the symbolism and meaning of Six of Swords in the Thoth deck. As usual, I will start with the description of the card, and then we will dive deeper into the symbolism of all of the elements that we can see here. I will list the meanings of the card in Divination at the very end of the video, and the timestamp for when I start talking about that is shown below now, so you can jump there if you want. When we look at this card, we know that there is harmony here again. The swords are very evenly spaced, they are all straight, and none of them look damaged like in the five. We can feel a similar balance here as we had in the Four of Swords, but here the harmony is not enclosed in any shape, like it was enclosed in St. Andrew's Cross in the Four of Swords, but rather everything in this card looks quite nicely arranged, even though the lines and shapes in the background look very complex. We get this feeling of space and coolness when we look at this card. It looks like everything is moving in the background to create the most perfect arrangement, to fall into place just right. And we have a yellow cross with a red rose in the very middle of the card, where the points of the swords meet. And if we have a closer look at the sword's pommels, we will notice that there are certain geometrical shapes here that you probably remember from one of my previous videos. And I will explain all of these elements in just a moment, but first, as usual, let's hear a quote from the Book of Thoth to find out how Crowley describes this card to us. The hilts of the swords, which are very ornamental, are in the form of the hexagram. Their points touch the outer petals of a red rose upon a golden cross of 6 squares, thus showing the Rosy Cross as the central secret of scientific truth. So we will start with talking about the meaning of the hexagram here, and before we dive into the symbolism, I just wanted to let you know that you can help me make more videos like this one by becoming a patron of this channel, and this is just €3 per month, so a little over $3. You can also send me a one-time donation through PayPal. All of the links are in the video description below. Thank you very much for considering this. Your support secures the future of this channel. Okay, let's get back to the Six of Swords now and the hexagram. So the hexagram is a symbol used in many different cultures. For example, in Indic religions, it represents two embodied energies, feminine and masculine, joined together as two triangles. So the downward triangle represents Shakti, and the upward triangle is relating to Shiva. And we could also see here that the feminine is represented by the same triangle that is used to represent the element of water. And masculine, of course, is shown as the same triangle as fire. Anahata, or the heart chakra, has a hexagram inside the 12-petaled green lotus. And in Sanskrit, Anahata means sound produced without touching two parts, and it also means pure or clean. This is a place of making right decisions aligned with our higher self, so we can say following our heart in life choices. And it is also, of course, connected with love and compassion. We, of course, also know the symbol of the hexagram as the Star of David, and it's also used in Kabbalah. Crowley has it in the Book of Thoth as another representation of the Tree of Life. So the very top here is associated with the invisible Sephirah Thoth and represents all three Sephirot above the abyss, so Keter, Chokmah, and Binah. And it is shown as linked to Saturn because the seeker of truth, as Crowley explains it, will need to penetrate the obscurity of Saturn to discover the supernal triad. We also have a symbol of a golden cross of 6 squares with a red rose in the center that Crowley says is showing us a rosy cross. The golden cross represents human body, and the rose represents our unfolding consciousness. And as a whole, the Rosy Cross symbolizes the teachings of Western esoteric tradition and is used by the Rosicrucian Fellowship, Freemasonry, the Order of the Golden Dawn, and Thelema. And now you can see on the screen the Golden Dawn version of the Rosy Cross that is used in rituals. And it has the same gold cross with a red rose in the very middle, and it also has alchemical symbols. It has the hexagram that I was talking about just a moment ago. It also has pentagrams showing the four elements and spirit ruling over them. And you should be quite familiar with this cross because its simplified version is on the back of the cards in some editions of the Thoth deck. In Thelema, the Rosy Cross is also a symbol of unity between masculine and feminine, the cross representing the masculine energy and the rose associated with feminine. So like the hexagram, the Rosy Cross is also connected to the act of creation and perfect balance of these two complementary energies. Crowley tells us that the Rosy Cross is the central secret of scientific truth. So the idea of science in the name of the card is linked to our expanding consciousness. So this is the purest form of science as the seeking of truth, discovering and exploring new ideas without bias. To be able to pursue truth, we need to be in balance and we need to follow our heart. We need to be in harmony of energies, accepting and balancing all that is within us. Crowley also tells us in the quote that the hilts of the swords that we can see in the card are very ornamental, and this might be a way to draw our attention to the pommels, which are shaped in forms of platonic solids. I explained platonic solids in more detail in my video about the Eight of Wands, and we could see an octahedron on that card associated with the element of air. Here we can see that the five platonic solids are joined by a golden sphere. The sword at the very top is showing us this ideal form, symbolizing Sephira Tiferet. So this is our balance and our center. This Sephira is connected with the sun that organizes all other heavenly bodies and creates the balance of the whole system. So from the top sword with the golden sphere, if we go clockwise, and the next one has a tetrahedron on its pommel connected to the element of fire. The next one in the sequence is icosahedron, the element of water. The following one, the sword at the very bottom, has an octahedron for air. The next one has a hexahedron. This is just a fancy name for a cube, and this is the element of earth. The very last one has a dodecahedron, which is not associated with any of the elements, but is said to be what God used to arrange constellations on the whole heaven. It's also interesting that the knuckle guards of the swords are shaped like a Hebrew letter Gimel, associated with the major arcana card, the Priestess. This card tells us about our spiritual path, being in the flow of things, having the right balance, and intuitively following what is right for us. And of course, the fact that the swords, or rather rapiers in this case, are ornamental is also telling us that the weapons are not intended for real fighting. They might be weapons that are more ceremonial, or maybe ones that are used in a different context than a battlefield. And the background of the card actually gives us a clue as to what exactly this context is. In the middle part of the background, we can see a circle inside a square, and it has some lines going through it. We can also see these little arrow pointers in some places. This pattern was explained by Lady Frida Harris, the artist behind all of the paintings that were used to create this deck. And she says that the swords are lying on a fencer's diagram from 14th century, which was worked out scientifically to show the positions in which a fencer can stand and be invulnerable. So we know now that the rapiers that we see here are used for fencing, not for battle, and this tells us that the energy of the card is trying to find the best solution. It's constantly moving and shifting to find the best position, and it could be considered very cold and soulless, like a supercomputer calculating all possible moves on a chessboard. But this is why we have a Rosy Cross in the very center of the card. It reminds us that intellect is at its best when it serves a higher purpose, when it's in service of an ever-expanding consciousness, and when it stems from the heart, from our love and our kindness. Let's hear another quote that will tell us where we are on the tree of life now and what decan is associated with this card. Tiferet shows the full establishment and balance of the idea of the suit. This is particularly the case with this card, as the intellect itself is also referred to the number 6. Mercury in Aquarius represents the celestial energy influencing the cherub of the man, thus showing intelligence and humanity. But there is much more than this in the symbol. The perfect balance of all mental and moral faculties, hardly won and almost impossible to hold in an ever-changing world, declares the idea of science in its fullest interpretation. The sixth Sephirah Tiferet is connected to the sun and color yellow. It's a lower reflection of Keter, and it organizes and balances all other Sephirot around it. On the decan wheel, we are now in the middle decan of Aquarius, and the time frame associated with this decan is from the 31st of January until the 8th of February. As I explained in my previous video about the Five of Swords, Aquarius always looks ahead, always tries to imagine what could have been if the world was different. It's a very inventive sign. It has a lot of imagination, and it loves to compare and contrast things. It loves to understand things. It's a fixed air sign, so it has a tendency to be very firm in its convictions. There can be stubbornness, they know exactly what they like, and it's usually hard to change their minds. However, here we have an additional influence of Mercury that gives Aquarius more flexibility. Mercury loves change and loves to consider all possible ideas and outcomes. It's associated with the element of water, but Agrippa says that it moves among all elements. Mercury is always in between or even above all divisions. It's neither a benefic nor a malefic planet, and it's not assigned to night or day. The energies of Aquarius and Mercury are very complementary to each other, and they can work very well as an unstoppable force that always seeks new solutions, always wants to know more, and constantly improves everything. We also have an influence of solar energy here through Tiferet, and this brings some more heat into the mix. The energy of Mercury is cool and watery, Aquarius is air, so it's warm and moist, and the sun is fiery, so it's hot and dry. And we still don't have anything solid and earthy here, but we have the sun that will keep us in balance. We can say that this card shows the balance of constant movement, which is really what all matter is on a deeper level. When Crowley tells us that intellect is associated with number 6, I'm pretty sure that this is a reference to the spiritual intelligence that he mentions in the description of the Lover's card. He says that the spiritual intelligence is necessary in all alchemical operations. And of course, the Rosy Cross in this card also points us to alchemy. This is the great work that is our method of seeking the truth. And the path of the Lover's card on the Tree of Life is between Bina and Tiferet, so it crosses the abyss to go into the very heart and center, and it's in Tiferet where we can find our spiritual intelligence. The cherub of man mentioned in the quote is associated with what the sign of Aquarius represents. As one of the fixed signs of the zodiac, Aquarius is representing the elemental power of air as one of the cherubim. They are described as a class of angel, usually attending at the throne of God, although they have different classifications in different religions. So the cherub of man has a face of a man, but other ones have a head of a bull for Taurus, head of a lion for Leo, and eagle for Scorpio. And if you want to find out why eagle represents Scorpio, you can have a look at my video about the Prince of Cups, where I explain the 3 symbols of Scorpio. The cherubim also represent powers of the Sphinx, and the power of the cherub of man is to know. We will find out more about the cherubim later when we get to major arcana cards, where we can find 4 cherubim in the corners, like in the Hierophant and the Universe cards. They can also be seen in the Chariot card, but in that card it is a bit more complicated. Before we get into the meaning of this card in Divination, I wanted to also mention something about this card that confuses a lot of people, me included. The classic meaning of this card is, among other things, connected with a journey by water. And this comes from the astrological attribution of the card. So Mercury, as the messenger of the gods and the only deity allowed to go into the underworld and back whenever he needed to, is associated with travel. And because he is in the sign of Aquarius, the travel will be slow, as this is a fixed sign. So in astrology, when we try to predict the change of a situation over time, a planet in a fixed sign denotes a slow change or not much change at all. And if we apply this to traveling, it would be a long and slow journey, which in the times when Rider-Waite-Smith deck was created meant travel by water. In the footnotes of Liberty, we can also find the following explanation. Prior to air travel, it probably meant long-distance travel, both literally and as a metaphor for psychological or philosophical journeying. Okay, so now let's talk about other meanings of this card in Divination. 6 of Swords shows us the idea of science. We are on a journey to discover the truth, to find the best possible solution. This card shows us intelligence. This is inventive, progressive, and creative thinking. And we can say that this is the very pinnacle of mental capabilities. Because this card comes after the 5 of Swords, sometimes it will show that we have regained our balance after a difficult time. So maybe we achieved some success after a period of difficulty. In spirituality, this card will mean that everything is in perfect balance. We are well aligned with our heart and everything is in its right place. If this card describes a person, it will be someone intelligent. This person knows how to make good decisions. They are focused more on their intellect rather than feelings. They're not emotional. There is a coolness of judgment here. Although the person is also moral, their intelligence is not completely soulless, they have good intentions, but they will think of themselves first. In work-related readings, 6 of Swords can show a period of very intense and intellectually demanding work. It can show a company where everything works smoothly and a place that is well managed. It can also be a place where a very high level of skill is required, so you will need to prove yourself and use your mental abilities to the maximum. In relationship context, this card often shows that someone is more calculating and doesn't really follow their emotions. So this can be showing that someone is treating the relationship in a more transactional way. They have a practical reason for pursuing this, and it's not based on their feelings. If this card shows up in your reading as an obstacle, it means that you are trying to solve something in a practical and logical way, but in this case, this is the wrong approach. So you need to focus more on what you are feeling rather than trying to follow what logically makes sense. As advice, on the other hand, the Six of Swords tells you to figure out your current situation logically. Think about all pros and cons, make an intelligent decision, and you need intellectual clarity to solve this problem. This card is also associated with unconventional ideas, so the solution to your problem may be something unexpected. With this card, you really need to think outside the box and generate new and creative solutions. That's it for today. Thank you so much for watching, and please remember to like the video, leave a comment, and of course, subscribe to my channel. I would like to thank everyone who is already supporting the channel. I appreciate your help very much. And if you want to start helping, please consider a one-time PayPal donation, or you can also become a patron of the channel for just €3 per month, so it's a bit like getting me a cup of coffee to say thanks once a month. If you consider how much you could be paying for a course on tarot, this really is a good value option. Every little bit of support and every donation is great help and is greatly appreciated. All links are in the video description below. Once again, thank you so much for today, and I will see you in the next video about the Seven of Swords very soon. Thank you, bye!